Greetings. Welcome to episode 3 of Indiana's Timeless Tales. The series currently comprises 5 books with a sixth in the final stages of production. Actually, that book is done. I'm getting ready to edit it. The books tell the story of Indiana from prehistory until the end of the American Revolution. The episode begins with the Ice Age, in which glaciers up to a mile thick ground Indiana into its present form. The podcast necessarily omits some information from the printed volume, so those interested in all of the material, you can find it in the book, Indiana's Timeless Tales, Prehistory to 1781. This episode deals with the native tribes that once lived in Indiana.
Indiana native tribes. French fur traders moving through the area in the late 1600s provide historians with our first view of the native inhabitants of Indiana. René Robert LaSalle's 1679 expedition that passed through the northern and western Indiana provided the first recorded exploration into the area that would become Indiana. At the time of his explorations, 6 tribes had major settlements in the state. These were Miami, Potawatamie, Kickapoo, Mascoutin, Delaware, and Shawnee tribes. Shawnees in Indiana. The Shawnee name derives from the Shawnee word Shawanawa, which means southerner in the native tongue. The tribe speaks a form of Algonquin, which makes the tribe akin to the Delaware, Illiniwek, Kickapoo, Menominee, Miami, Sauk, and Fox tribes. Range. The Shawnee were a semi-nomadic tribe and lived in villages scattered over a large area in the Ohio River Valley, Pennsylvania, and originally in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. Conflict with the Iroquois tribes in the Ohio River Valley drove them off for a number of years. The Iroquois did not live in the Ohio River Valley. However, they wanted the region because it was a prime hunting area. The Iroquois wanted the abundant fur supply to trade with the Europeans. Iroquois power began declining, and the Shawnee were able to migrate back into the Ohio River Valley, Kentucky, and central Ohio. During the middle years of the 1700s, they had settled into 3 main areas in current Indiana: the southwestern, southeastern, and northern regions around Fort Wayne. Some bands also moved into the White and Mississinawa Rivers region. Shawnee dress. Both men and women wore leggings. Men wore breechclouts, while women wore skirts over the leggings. Neither sex wore shirts, but wore ponchos in cold weather. Some of the men wore beaded headband with 1 or 2 feathers stuck in the back. They did not wear headdresses. Warriors would sometimes shave their heads. Shawnee lifestyle. The Shawnee men did the hunting. They were also warriors that fought both white encroachment and other tribes to protect their hunting lands or gain land from other tribes. The women took care of the children, did the cooking, and tended the crops. Both sexes engaged in storytelling, an important part of their culture. During the summer, the tribes lived in larger villages to plant and tend their garden crops. In winter, these villages would split up into smaller groups to live in hunting camps. The Shawnee constructed dugout canoes to travel over water and used dogs to transport goods overland. Prior to the European arrival, the natives did not have horses. Shawnee villages. The Shawnee lived in bark-covered structure called a wickham or wigwam. These structures were easy to build but are not portable. Most families would build a new one each season when they moved into their seasonal winter camps or summer villages. The structure consisted of wooden poles covered with bark or grass. They used rope or strips of bark to hold the covering in place. These wigwams were usually 8 to 10 feet tall and could be cone-shaped, round, or rectangular. A village typically had a larger council house. Shawnee agriculture. Maize was the most important crop, and most tribes grew some. If they did not grow it, they traded for it. They also grew beans, squash, pumpkins, sunflowers, and probably potatoes. They also gathered honey, nuts, berries, and other fruits. Tribes tried to grow enough food to dry for storage over the winter. Shawnee hunting. The Shawnee diet was largely meat-based. The men hunted the forest for deer and wild turkeys with bow and arrow. They've also fished the streams and sometimes used traps and snares to catch smaller game like rabbit and squirrel. Shawnee meals. Most of the meals were simple to prepare. They would eat corn on the cob when fresh maize was available. They also popped the corn and ground it into a meal to make cornbread or hominy. They used clay ovens to bake the cornbread. They roasted meat over the fire or heated stones. Usually they had water with their meals. Shawnee politics. Each village had its own chief. The village chief could be a man or woman. They chose their war chief based on his bravery and skill in battle. The war chief was always a male. A principal chief held sway over several villages and was always a male. Chiefs had considerable power, but held it only as long as they had the support of the people. If they grew unpopular, the people could replace them. To contact the Shawnee tribe, visit this link, www.shawneetribe.com. That's SHAWNEE-TRIBE.com. And their mailing address, the Shawnee Tribe, P.O. Box 189, 29 South Highway 69A, Miami, Oklahoma 74355. Phone number 918-542-2411. Miami Indian Tribe in Indiana. The Miami use the name Maitosinkiaki, the people, to refer to their tribe. They contend the name Miami is an outside name used by others to describe them. This name seems to derive from the word Miamia, which means downstream people. The tribe speaks a form of Algonquin, which makes the tribe akin to the Delaware, Illiniwak, Kickapoo, Menominee, Shawnee, Sauk, Potawatamie, and Fox tribes. Beaver Wars. Historians think the original home of the Miami tribe was in the Wisconsin area. The Iroquois appear to have driven them southwards during the Beaver Wars with the Iroquois in the 17th century. This war was fueled by Dutch and English desire for furs, which were abundant in the northern regions. The tribes of the Iroquois League initiated a series of wars to expand their territory into the Great Lakes area in the 17th century. The wars displaced many tribes, including elements of the Shawnee, the Huron, Ottawa, Ojibwe, Mississauga, Pottawatomie, and the Miami. The forced migration left Michigan's lower peninsula and parts of the Ohio country almost depopulated of native tribes. The Miami relocate. The tribe settled in the Wabash River region in western Ohio during historic times. The tribe migrated to the area now encompassed by northern Indiana, western Ohio, and southern Michigan. French missionaries visiting the Lake Michigan area were the first Europeans to encounter the tribe. By the late 1600s, the tribe constituted the largest tribal group in what would later become Indiana. The tribe was composed of 6 main bands. The Crane Band are Miamis, Wea, Piankashaw, Kilatika, Mengakonkia, and Pepekokia. The French explorers noted the similarities in language and customs of these tribes as they moved into the area in the 1670s. The tribe occupied an area in northern Indiana that centered on the region from the St. Joseph River around current South Bend south to the Wabash River around Lafayette. The tribe also had villages all along the upper Wabash River and into the Fort Wayne area. Cycle of life. During the summer months, the people lived in villages where they grew maize, beans, and squash, as well as other vegetables and herbs. During the late summer and early fall, they harvested, dried, and processed these crops for storage to eat during the winter. The women did most of the farming work, aided at times by the men. The men spent the greater part of their time hunting deer or buffalo. They also took squirrels, rabbits, and other small game for food. During the late fall and early winter, the villages broke up into small bands to establish hunting camps near their winter hunting grounds. The men spent their time hunting white-tailed deer, bison, and eastern elk. They used the meat for food and the furs for clothing and to trade. Winter was a preferred time to gather fur, as during the winter months the animal's fur was thicker than during the summer months. They spent the winter hunting the animals, smoking the meat, and tanning the hides. In the early spring, the men remained in camp. However, the women took the children and moved into sugar maple groves to tap the trees and process the sap into syrup and sugar. They would then eat or trade the sugar. As warm weather approached, the people once again moved into the villages to plant their fields. Tribal lifestyle. The Miami largely lived in oval huts constructed from woven reeds called wigwams. Each village would have a large log council house. The men and women both wore leggings. The men wore breechclouts while the women wore skirts. The upper body was generally uncovered except during winter when both sexes wore shirts during the cold weather. They made leather moccasins on their feet. They spoke using the Miami, Illinois language. Men were the hunters and warriors, the women farmers, and had responsible for child care. Women typically braided their hair or wore it in a bun. Men did not wear headdresses. Typically they wore a beaded headband with a couple of feathers stuck in the back. Usually the men shaved their head mohawk style. They used dugout canoes made from a single log to travel over water and used dogs to help move goods overland. Men could only serve as chiefs. A village chief presided over community affairs. The warriors chose a war chief to lead them into battle or on hunting expeditions. Indiana presence. The tribe was largely removed from Indiana during the early to mid-19th century. The Miami still maintain a presence in Indiana, although they are not a federally recognized tribe in the state. For more information, contact Miami Nation of Indians, State of Indiana, P.O. Box 41, 80 West 6th Street, Peru, Indiana 46970. The website is www.miamindians.org. The phone number 765-473-9631. Potawatamie Tribe in Indiana. The word Potawatamie derives from the Ojibwe word Potawatamie. This name is in reference to the alliance between the Potawatamie, Ojibwe, and Ottawa tribes, referred to as the Council of Three Fires. The tribe speaks a form of Algonquin, which makes the tribe akin to the Delaware, Illiniwek, Kickapoo, Menominee, Miami, Sauk, and Fox tribes. Migrations. Early in the 17th century, the Potawatamie tribe lived in southwestern Michigan. Iroquois expansion during the Beaver Wars of the 17th century drove them out. This war was fueled by Dutch and English desire for furs, which were abundant in the northern regions. The tribes of the Iroquois League initiated a series of wars to expand their territory into the Great Lakes during the 17th century. The wars displaced many tribes, including elements of the Shawnee, Huron, Ottawa, Ojibwe, Mississauga, Pottawatomie, and the Miami. The forced migration left Michigan's lower peninsula and parts of the Ohio country almost depopulated of native tribes. Sometime around 1687, the Algonquin tribes of the Great Lake area struck back against the Iroquois and began taking back their lands. During this period, the tribe moved into the Green Bay area. During the middle part of the 18th century, they expanded in what is now northern Indiana, where they established a number of villages. Tribal organization. Each member of a tribal community belonged to a clan, which is a group of families. Clan relatives raised the children, imparting them with the traditions of the clan. Normally, one of the clan leaders became the village chief. Among the Pottawatomie, the village chief could either be a man or a woman. Pottawatomie lifestyle. Pottawatomie women wore long deerskin dresses. The men, breechcloths, leggings, and deerskin shirts. Both men and women wore moccasins to protect the feet. Many men wore a leather headband with one or two feathers stuck in the back. Some men also wore otter fur turbans. Both men and women had long hair, but during times of war, the men would shave their heads mohawk style. The tribe used both wigwams and rectangular lodges as houses. Wigwams were oval huts constructed from woven reeds. The wigwams served as winter homes in the hunting camps. They built the lodges using bent saplings and covered them with birch bark. The tribes lived in these lodges in the summer when they occupied their villages. They also used birch bark to build canoes. They would also build dugout canoes. For overland travel, the tribe used dogs to pack supplies. The tribe migrated frequently after the soil in their gardens became depleted. Men cleared the fields for planting, hunted, and served as warriors to protect the tribe. Women tended the garden and raised the children. In the fall, the men hunted buffalo. After this hunt, tribal members left the villages and formed smaller hunting camps. Pottawatomie diet. The Pottawatomie women grew corn, beans, squash, and tobacco. They also gathered wild rice, nuts, berries, and other fruits for the tribe. Men hunted white-tailed deer and elk. They used traps and snares for smaller game like rabbits, squirrels, and birds. In the spring, they tapped maple trees and boiled the sap to make maple sugar. They also grew medicinal herbs in their garden. The Pottawatomie tribe still has a presence in Indiana. For more information about the Pottawatomie in Indiana, contact the Waukegan Band of the Pottawatomie, 58620 Sink Road, Box 180, Dalwajag, Michigan 49047. Phone number is 800-517-0777. The website is www.pokaganband-nsn.gov. Kickapoos in Indiana. The name Kickapoo derives from the Shawnee word for wanderer. The tribe migrated frequently, lending the name. The Kickapoo and the closely related associated tribe Mascoutens originated during historic times from their homeland in northwestern Ohio and southern Michigan to the prairie region in northwestern Indiana and northeastern Illinois sometime in the 1730s and 1740s. Villages also appeared along the Wabash River. By 1819, the Kickapoo and Mascoutin tribes had merged, with the Mascoutin name disappearing from history. In that year, the tribe ceded its land to the United States and began leaving the region, settling in Missouri. Kickapoo lifestyle. Kickapoo lifestyle. The Kickapoo were Plains Indians, and their diet consisted mainly of bison. However, the women did farm and raised maize, squash, and beans. The men hunted bison and small game like rabbits and squirrel. The food they ate largely depended upon where they lived and what resources were available. Since the tribe migrated extensively, their food and style of dress varied widely. The Delaware. The Delaware tribe's name derives from Delaware Bay on the Atlantic coast. The bay was named for Thomas West, Lord Delaware, who served as the first governor of the Virginia Company. During these years of early European settlement, the Delaware had 3 clans, each with its own dialect of the language. These clans were the Unami, turtle, Unalachko, turkey, and Mincy, wolf. The animal names represented the protective totem for the tribe. The various Indian wars gradually drove the Delaware from their homes in Pennsylvania to Ohio. The Northwest Indian Wars forced them from Ohio, and by terms of the Treaty of Greenberg in 1795, the tribe moved into east-central Indiana. They occupied the area that is now Anderson, Indiana, around 1798. Continued conflict. The Indiana Territory was no haven for the tribe. The Shawnee chief Tecumseh began his movement during the early years of the 19th century. He visited tribes all over Indiana and into the American Southwest in his drive to form a great confederacy to drive the whites out of the region. The Delaware refused to join this confederacy. William Henry Harrison defeated the forces of Tecumseh at the Battle of Tippecanoe on November the 7th, 1811, destroying the Confederacy. The collapse brought disaster on the remaining tribes. The Delaware vacated their town on the White River in 1811 for Piqua, Ohio. Americans burned their main village along the White River in 1813. The tribes returned in 1813 to rebuild the burned town. However, the whites encroached on the area, bringing alcohol with them. The Delaware, with no hunting or farming lands to acquire food, lived in abject poverty and starvation. Alcohol became a major affliction. Moving the tribes. James Monroe became president in 1817 and initiated a policy of moving Indian tribes out of the east and relocating in the west of the Mississippi River. To complete this policy, several treaties would have to be signed between the various tribes. Negotiations began between the Potawatamie, Delaware, Miami, Wea, and other tribes. Jonathan Jennings, Lewis Cass, and Benjamin Park, acting as representatives of the United States, signed a treaty with the Delaware Nation on October the 3rd, 1818. Chief William Anderson, representing the Delaware, signed the treaty on October the 3rd, agreeing to move the tribe out of Indiana to west of the Mississippi River within 3 years. The United States government agreed to give the Delaware the horses and boats to move out of the state. The treaty also granted the tribe a flat payment of $13,312.20, as well as annual payments of $4,000 in silver. The Delaware thus ceded almost 6 million acres of land. Refuge. The move brought the tribe to southwest Missouri. Still, the tribe did not find a home as they had to move several more times. For more information on the Delaware tribe, contact Delaware Tribal Offices, Oklahoma Headquarters, 5100 Tuxedo Boulevard, Bartlesville, Oklahoma, 74006. The phone is 918-337-6590. On the web, it is www.delawaretribe.org.
Find out more about Indiana history by purchasing the book Indiana's Timeless Tales, Prehistory to 1781. The book includes the early history of Indiana from the time the glaciers melted until the final days of the Revolutionary War. You can find the book on my website, www.mossyfeetbooks.com. There are links to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google Play, and other online booksellers. You can choose to purchase the book in ebook or softbound versions. An audiobook version of the book is available on Google Play. Residents of southeastern Indiana can find my books at the Walnut Street Variety Shop on George Street in Batesville, Indiana. At the conclusion of this series, I will compile the episodes into an audiobook. The audiobook